Welcome one and welcome all. It is Tuesday, January 2nd, 2024. Got the year right. First time here on the roundtable that we're in 2024. It is Tuesday, obviously, 8 p.m. Central Time. A few minutes late. You can blame Tony Catalina for that, telling us a story that we absolutely had to hear, but we'll save it for the offline chat. It is time for the weekly Blogging the Boys roundtable. You can listen to this show on the Blogging the Boys podcast network. If you do, you will hear the fantastic voices of tonight's roundtablers. You can also watch us live on the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel, the Blogging the Boys Twitch channel, or the Blogging the Boys Facebook page. You can, of course, catch the rewatch at these platforms at your own convenience. Like I said, you can hear these gentlemen across the Blogging the Boys podcast network. You can read their work at bloggingtheboys.com, and you can generally, at least this season, see them on the Blogging the Boys roundtable. This is kind of the core four, if you will. For the first time in 2024, let's go around the horn. My name is RJ Ochoa. Tony Catalina, you are here. Congratulations on your fantasy football championship. First time in 13 years.
13 years. Yeah, it was crazy. It got embarrassing. Like I said, there's people that have won twice. Pretty much everyone's won one except for me. So to get the monkey off my back, it feels good.
Well, I'm a 4-time champion in my league of record. Nobody's gotten to 4, so I stand alone there. My dad won our league for the first time ever, so congratulations to Roy. Very proud of you. Wish it had been me. I wanted that 5-piece, but it just can never happen. David Howman, if you could have 5 of anything right now, what would it be and why?
I think I'd probably have to go with 5 episodes of The Office to watch, because I know that Tony still hasn't watched any episodes of The Office, so I'll go with that.
Yeah, Tony's been promising us roundtable after roundtable that he's going to watch it. Rachel's apparently into it. He's just lying at this point, Howman. I mean, that's really all it is. It's just pure, total, unadulterated lies, and I think we're all pretty sick of it. Danny Phantom, if you could have 5 of anything right now, what would it be? Maybe it would be fantasy football championships, because you yourself won yours. Congratulations.
Oh, I don't know. If I could have 5 of something, I'm not sure, but I'll tell you what, I am grateful for my new keyboard that I have. I've been doing the clunkety clunk, as you've heard
we
the
know.
last couple. Yeah, well, my wife actually had spilled orange juice on my last one, so I had to borrow my son. So that's why it was loud. But no, I have this new one. It's bright. The letters are big. It's suited for me. So I'm just happy with one thing, and that's a functioning keyboard right now.
By the way, you all missed the low-hanging fruit. I didn't design the question this way, but Ravi hit it right nail on the head. 5 more wins for the Cowboys, as they're firmly not the 1 seed, would in fact be a victory in Super Bowl 58, which is obviously the main goal. Charles McFadder, though, on the Book of Faces, just went selfish. I would take $5 million, right? Like, just straight up. Zachary Maldonado chimed in. Why are you guys settling at 500 million, $5 billion? Like, why are we going so low with a measly $5 million? I guess before we kind of get to tonight's setup, it's important to recap how we got here. Again, it's the first roundtable of 2024. It's week 18, the final week of the regular season. Tony Catalina, the Dallas Cowboys, who are 13-point favorites at this moment in time against the Washington Commanders on Sunday afternoon, they win that game. They're NFC East champions. They're the 2 seed in the NFC. A week ago, this felt impossible. This felt like a fever dream. This felt like way beyond, like we were Charlie and Lucy was ultimately going to pull this ball out, but the Arizona Cardinals, Kyler Murray, Jonathan Gannon, they helped us out.
Yeah, I got to be honest. I think a month ago, maybe even less than that, I put a tweet out saying, like, let's just worry about ourselves. Like, let's not worry about what the Eagles got going on. Like, in my mind, the back of my mind, I kind of resided to the fact we were going to be the 5 seed. It just didn't seem probable, even though we knew it was possible. And a lot of things had to fall the right way, and the Cowboys had to take care of business when they did. And look at us now, 1 Washington Commanders game away from a 2 seed. It's pretty crazy to think about.
Howman, you and I park our cars in the same garage on a lot of topics, and one of them is Mike McCarthy. We sing his songs all the time, much to the chagrin of some other roundtablers who will remain nameless. But you and I, along with everybody, really have kind of thought that the Eagles were not it this season. I know it's been annoying how long it's taken for, the bottom to kind of fall out, but I think it was worth it. I think it was worth waiting and waiting and waiting, because to have it happen the way it did against Jonathan Gannon was about as sweet as it could have possibly been for a fan base that ridiculed us for losing to the Cardinals, for that to be the game that undid it all for them.
Yeah, it was really just the best possible way that this could have happened. And not to toot my own horn, but a few weeks ago on one of these roundtables, I actually put it out there into the ether of like, the Cardinals look better with Kyler Murray back. And of course there's the Jonathan Gannon factor. Not saying I definitely, spoke it into existence, but I will take credit if someone wants to give me credit for it. But really, like, just the way that this season went for the Eagles, like all season long, all these different games where they won it, at the last second, or they had, incredible turnover luck in one way or another. And, us Cowboys fans were watching this the whole time and saying, there's no way it's going to last. There's no way it's going to go the full season, and there's no way it's going to carry through the playoffs. And for it to happen like in this final month of the season, and even with the like defensive coordinator demotion, Matt Patricia, the great Matt Patricia with his pencil on his ear, which doesn't make sense because he's holding a laminated play sheet anyway. I don't know what he's using the pencil for. But for him to like step in and the defense just gets even worse. Like it's, Eagles fans are absolutely spiraling right now. And it's just been incredible. It's been chef's kiss. Couldn't have asked for anything better. So as someone who was born and raised in Arizona, I got to tip my cap to those Cardinals.
That's right. Former NFC East members, the Cardinals. So, a nice kind of historical presence that they have had this season with regards to the Cowboys and the Eagles. Danny Phantom, you were probably the most, and I don't mean this negatively, the most glum about Dallas's odds of winning the division. You had talked about the loss in Philadelphia and how, and that held up. I mean, with all the tiebreakers, it was going to take a miracle for Dallas to regain control in a conceivable and practical way. And that miracle happened. It was incredibly unpredictable, yet here we sit, and everything the Cowboys want to accomplish is right in front of them.
Yeah, no, I mean, basically after the loss to the Eagles, I was, I still haven't recovered from that, but I tell you what, I feel better now. But I just kind of conceded. We're going to the 5, and that's when basically started looking at the scenarios and everything. I will say this, that the Philadelphia surviving, getting through Kansas City and Buffalo, they just weren't losing games during the hard stretch. So it's like, where are we going to make up ground? But then, I think a lot of us weren't surprised to see them, falter, because I think that they just aren't as good as their record had shown. And then sure enough, I thought it was going to happen next week against the Giants. I thought the Giants could do it on their home turf. So I thought it was going to come down the wire. I didn't count it out. And I thought there was still a chance, but I'm so glad that we get to go into the last game with control of our own destiny. It just completely changes the dynamic of this week.
It does. The vibes are great. It's fun to kind of have control, know that, not be depending on this, that, or the other. I think we're all feeling really great as 2024 begins. And in the spirit of that, no longer the Christmas spirit, but whatever spirit you want to call it, we have the normal band back together. Tony Catalina, can I get a ring-a-ding-ding-ding-ding-ding-ding? Because tonight is double points night. That's right. Everybody in the chat, whatever points you're going to hand out, it is a double point situation for our roundtablers tonight. You hand out 5 points. Be wary, that is 10 going to the person you're awarding them to. If you hand out 10 points, that's 20. I don't need to do the rest of the math for you. If I do, then we have a very big problem on our hands. Danny Phantom, do you feel like this hurts or improves your chances at winning the roundtable this evening?
I feel that it does nothing.
Yeah, I mean, that's like literally true, but for the purposes of like the fun and the moment, you feel like, it really changes everything.
It's definitely going to make things either, oh man, it's so hard. I could go one hand over here. I don't know. I can't decide.
Watsamata notes, Howman, that inflation has reached the roundtable. Those, the economy. That's what we're just trying to do, Howman, is keep up with the rising economy.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's to the question that you asked, Danny, I think my chances of winning just doubled. I think that checks out.
There we go. That's the response that we were looking for right there. All right, so to get the night started, Howman, you received 5 points from the crowd. You received 5 points from me. Tony, you had 5 points as well. Danny's still sitting on a goose egg. This is where we're at. Tony 10, Howman 20, Danny 0, but a long game to go. Tony, did you have something you wanted to add? Are you excited?
I'm excited. I think I'm a man of the people, so I think this might be a benefit to me.
Double points that did not impact me. I'll just say that with my score.
Well, Brian wants to give you 2.5 to round it up to 5. I don't want to do that. I want to make the math simple for myself. So, Brian, I'm just going to round that up to 5. I'm going to give Danny 10. That's the way this evening is going to roll. Sorry, I don't make the rules. These things are sacred around here. So here's the point total at this particular moment in time. We're going to get to playoff chat in a moment. Rick says, "Hi, guys. I'm at the airport." Rick, put the phone down, go through security, take the belt and the shoes off. Be cool. Don't be the person that holds up the line. We all hate that person. By the way, Ravi says, "Tony for president." All right, here we go. All right, let's do this thing. Tony Catalina, thoughts on Lyle Collins returning to the Dallas Cowboys? Signed with the practice squad on Tuesday afternoon.
I think Danny made a good point on Twitter. It's not like it's not a big move, right? It's not a huge move, but it's a move that I understand and respect nonetheless, right? It's you need some depth, and I had talked about it and sent a tweet out myself saying, you know, depth in the playoffs is a lot different than the depth in the regular season, right? You're trying to develop young guys and trying to give reps to the guys in the regular season while trying to win games. Now you get in the playoffs, you need people who could step in and possibly help you in a pinch right then and there. Like, I think they feel a lot better about, a possible Lyle Collins, plug and play than they would maybe Danny's boy Awesome Richards or something of that nature, where Chuma Doga might be able to get you through a week 13 matchup, but they don't probably love the idea of it in the divisional round. So you kind of kick the tires on some old friends, some guys that have played the game and played it at a high level at some point. And from everything they say within the mothership, they say that he looks good physically. He passes the eye test, and obviously football shape is a lot different than how you look just walking around the halls. But as far as the move goes, zero risk, minimal risk whatsoever, and a big potential reward to have another depth piece in the room.
Howman, the fallout with Lyle was pretty public, and he was out of shape and didn't exactly go well. But there was a point in time where most of us lambasted the front office for just cutting him and moving on. And that was the offseason of Amari Cooper and Randy Gregory. It was a very difficult time, but he was fairly beloved in the locker room. I mean, Dak Prescott's been a huge supporter of his. So at the very least, I mean, if you're trying to establish a high floor of environmental energy, this works out in that capacity.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty much the main thing that they're adding here. Obviously, there's getting him for depth purposes with all the experience that he has, the experience specifically that he has in this locker room, but also just, I mean, he was well liked in that locker room for the most part. Also, the fact that he, used to be a starter here, specifically with Terrence Steele. Obviously, he hasn't had his best season. It's been kind of up and down. This kind of creates like you got to look over your shoulder. You really got to step up now, because I don't think the Cowboys are necessarily saying to Terrence Steele, like, hey, we're bringing this guy in and you got to step it up or else. But it definitely has that effect to some degree, because Steele is the one who beat, Collins out for his job. And now they're bringing Collins back, and he's like, well, I got to step up. And, obviously Collins has some of the positional versatility too. He played guard back in the day. But, for me, as far as like this move, it does for me what double points did for Danny. I'm not getting too excited about it. It's a nice move. And like Tony said, there's really no risk here. It could pay off dividends if they end up needing him. But at the same time, it's like, I looked at the practice squad the other day too, and like, I forgot Martavis Bryant was on there too. Like, when that happened, we were all like, ooh, Martavis Bryant, like, what's he going to do? And we haven't seen him yet. So I feel I can't really get too excited about Lyle Collins coming back to the practice squad, but I like the move.
Yeah, Danny, this feels extraordinarily low risk. I don't want to say potentially really high reward, but I mean, the potential return on investment stands to be significant, which is, a very good thing.
I don't know. I mean, I'll tell you how I feel about this move. I don't feel very good at all. And I tell you, the reason why I don't feel very good is because, to me, what I heard is we're not quite sure what's going on with Tyler Smith. And because look, they got TJ Bass, who, by the way, did a really good job, in the game. And they have Chuma, they have options. But Tyler's kind of that Swiss Army knife, kind of where he can do this and he can do that. I mean, he's also the answer that, for depth on the tackle side. So he's an important piece. What Lyle's going to do, I mean, come on. I mean, he was a cap casualty with the Bengals. I mean, I was one of those people that was not sad at all when he's gone. I mean, he was cap casualty with us. He was one of the players when all this stuff was happening that I would miss the least. And look at him. I mean, he was released this year, and he's coming off an injury. I mean, I don't know what he hasn't played. Don't know what to expect. He's just a typical, Shaq Leonard practice squad signing that really, I mean, you shouldn't be getting too excited about. Now, he's familiar with the Cowboys, and he's been playing next to Zach Martin for a long time. And he's, he did play some left guard in 2015. So, I mean, that's good. And I don't mind that, for depth, that's okay. But I mean, I'm not excited about it. And to me, it's a little bit more like, I wonder what's going on with Tyler that carries the most water with me.
I think it's fair to potentially try to read the tea leaves and wonder whether there is, more at play. But Tony, Michael Watson chimes in on part of what Danny says, is we have Chuma. I think that is the problem. I think that this is just about like not trusting. And you had a great tweet about this earlier, Tony. That's like playoff depth is a very different thing. And so no offense to Chuma Edoga, but if the Cowboys are in the divisional round against the Eagles or the Lions or something like that, and it's like, oh man, we got to put in Chuma Edoga, I think we're all 10 out of 10 panicked. Not that we feel better about Lyle, but that might be like a 9.5 out of 10 as opposed to 10.
Yeah, I mean, that's, you hit the nail on the head, and I appreciate you bringing up the tweet, but that's kind of what it is. It's like, okay, you saw what we have here, and TJ Bass is doing some interesting things, but I don't know how if they look at it and be real with themselves, like undrafted guy who's played, minimal snaps all year, or a veteran who coming off an injury, if he looks halfway decent, or you hope you never have to see these guys, right? But you want somebody who has some skins on the wall to go out there and possibly play. Now, La'el Collins could end up being nothing. More likely than not, like Howman said about Martavis Bryant, we haven't even seen the guy, but you try to bring in like a Damian Wilson, somebody to come in and you look and say, okay, there is some depth there, this experience. Can we get anything out of these guys when it matters most?
Howman, by the way, a lot of questions about Damian Wilson. No update on that. So Damian Wilson, for now, his biggest story ever involved with the Cowboys is that time he got shot in the eye with the paintball. Anybody remember that? Yeah. It's a long time.
Yeah, now that you bring it up.
Yeah, that was crazy. That was one of the opening remarks of training camp. Like, it was like, oh, hey, the season started. One of our linebackers got shot in the eye with a paintball. So only the Cowboys. So Howman, I liked this comment from David Smith. Says, is La'el Collins coming in as the short yardage back? That could have been Connor McGovern, by the way, once upon a time. So not out of the realm of possibility, I guess, for the Cowboys. But Howman, the New York Jets moved on from one running back on Tuesday in Dalvin Cook. And Tony Catalina was one of the people tweeting out like, hey, should they do this? I think they should do this. I think that was how I read it. Howman, if 10 is like absolutely got to have it right now, Arnold Schwarzenegger's kid and Jingle All the Way with Turbo Man, a level of want. Where are you at on Dalvin Cook, 1 to 10?
I'm probably at like a 2, maybe a 3. In the offseason when Dalvin Cook was a free agent and, every single fan base wanted him and like no NFL team actually wanted him, I wasn't really, too in on him. All respect to Dalvin Cook, but he is kind of, the example of, one of many examples of running backs and how they have such a short shelf life. And it's very hard for them to get that next contract after they've hit a certain threshold of carries and usage. And, even in his time with the Jets this year, like he hasn't, really looked all that special. And obviously there's a whole other bunch of things happening with the Jets to why they're not super successful, but you've seen Breece Hall has been good in that offense. Dalvin Cook hasn't brought the same type of juice. Not to burst Tony's bubble, because like you said, he was just like absolutely fully 100% endorsing,
right.
Like absolute must go get him. But I mean, I wouldn't hate it, just like the La'el Collins move. Like if they add him to the practice squad, I'm not going to say like Stephen Jones is terrible. Like we got to get him out of there, but it's not going to really move the needle for me either, especially because the running game issues that the Cowboys have seen has not been Tony Pollard, really. It's the offensive line is getting beat by better defensive linemen. People talking about like Deuce Vaughn didn't really play well, but he also was getting stuffed like on his 2 carries that he had. So I like the running backs. I just don't always like what we get from the offensive line on those running plays.
Yeah, Danny, the run game is, mediocre would be like the best version of it, lately, but I don't know. It would be
false.
But I don't know that Dalvin Cook really helps at all. He doesn't have a level of skill right now to be able to survive all of the other environmental circumstances.
That's true. And and what Howman said is right. He's going to have the same problems, but I'll tell you what, I am a little bit in on this one. And the reason for this is because I feel like obviously the Deuce Vaughn experiment needs to just go away. We like him and stuff, but I don't even know.
People wanted to take Jordan Lewis's number and give it to him. Jordan Lewis, who was a hero.
I get it. He was fun to watch in preseason. We didn't know. And, but I think that it's clear now that he just doesn't have a significant part of this offense. And I'm actually disappointed that when Rico's been battling some injury history, it's been a struggle. So I've been worried about preserving his health. I think he's been playing fantastic. I wanted Rico to get more of the dirty yards, the short yardage stuff. But at the same time, I didn't want to just like, pound him to the ground too, because I know that he is tough to keep healthy. I was kind of wondering where Malik Davis has been. I would like to have seen him a little bit. I thought he would have a chance this last week, but no. So to me, I wouldn't mind seeing Cook, because I don't want to have nothing behind Pollard. And I think that Rico, and dealing with injuries, he's, one play away from just being unavailable. So give me Dalvin Cook as a veteran back. He's not going to be like any type of game changer type of, Derrick Henry trade type of thing player, but he does give the Cowboys a more physical presence. And I do think they're missing that. I watched that Lipke handoff, and he's so focused on trying to get through a wall that's there, that he's not paying attention to what he should be doing first. I feel like there's a big issue with the Cowboys with trying to get through those small creases. And I think Dalvin Cook could help there. So, I'm not opposed to it. I'm a little bit buying on this.
Tony, Danny said that Dalvin Cook could offer a more physical presence. In some senses, he could offer just a more actual presence. Because again, it is so thin, just again, from a quantitative standpoint. Once again, you were like, this has to happen or I will renounce my fandom for the Dallas Cowboys. So go ahead and explain why you feel that way.
Yeah, no, no. My thing is, like I said, the tweet I put out, one of them, I think it references like the day that they bring La'el Collins in and Damian Wilson in to look at is not the day that I'm going to shut down a Dalvin Cook conversation, right? Like we're talking about two guys that it's like, we're talking about way back here, but no, for me, I'm kind of with Danny. Like you might as well just kick the tires on it, see what you have there. Like I've been Rico Dowdle's like biggest fan, for the last couple of years, but injury history, he just missed a game. He does bring a juice level and he plays well when he touches the football, but I'm not expecting some type of playoff Lenny type of situation, but like, what's the difference between like him and like a Leonard Fournette type of spark in there where all you need is 5 or 6 touches, maybe, you know what I mean? Like Rico Dowdle, he's bringing something, but you can't lean on it. I can't believe I looked at it today. Malik Davis doesn't have a single carry all year. And then Deuce Vaughn's like averaging like a half a yard a touch. Yeah, and I think the legend of Deuce Vaughn has grown into bigger than the reality of Deuce Vaughn. So outside of Tony Pollard, who's had his struggles this year, and to Howman's credit, a lot of it is the offensive line and some of the scheme and how it isn't working, but this running game isn't working. So if Dalvin Cook wants to come here and he wants to find a way to be on a playoff team, I'd kick the tires on it, see what he can bring, and it's not going to cost you a whole lot to do it either.
Howman.
Well, first off, Tony, you missed the opportunity to say the legend of Deuce Vaughn has grown larger than Deuce Vaughn himself. So that
the same height. So
great line. But I was going to say too, bringing in La'el Collins, bringing in Damian Wilson, if we're, going back a few years to get guys of position of need for running back, like let's call up DeMarco Murray. He's a coach at OU. It's not like he's doing anything at this point. They just lost their bowl game. So, he's available. What's he doing?
Ryan Williams. I was trying to think of like random people when we were doing the like La'el Collins, Damon Wilson jokes, and Ryan Williams was the most like obscure recent name I could think of at running back. I thought that dude was going to be so awesome.
What's Lance Dunbar doing?
Or that. You know what I'm saying? Like we could go any number of different directions here. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Brian, for the super chat. Everybody follow Brian on TikTok at Talk Cowboys. Says re-sign Zeke the moment the Pat season is over. Unfortunately, Brian, the NFL rules don't work that way. But I don't think that the Cowboys miss Zeke, Danny. It's just, and for what it's worth, and I saw some chatter about this on Twitter. Tony Pollard is 935 yards on the season. And I'm not going to sit here and like tell anybody that he's had a great year, but like he's probably going to be 1,000-yard rusher, which again, in today's NFL is not like, what it used to be, but it's nothing to sneeze at. You know what I mean? It's just, it hasn't felt great. And he hasn't really contributed much in the pass game either.
Yeah, I think people are too hard on Pollard. There's some plays where you're kind of looking at what's he doing here. But there's just hasn't been a lot of room to run. If you look at the 5 good runs the Cowboys did have on Saturday, he was breaking arm tackles. He was running hard. And so he's trying it, but they're just not giving him any opportunities. And do we miss Zeke thing? I will answer no, because I don't want that to gain any traction. But I will say this, I think we might miss him a little. Maybe not his salary that much, but there would certainly plays where with the Cowboys goal line struggles this year and just struggling trying to punch in the ball, where I wouldn't mind having Zeke. He knows how to lower his shoulder and get through and fight through it more than anyone the Cowboys currently have. So I guess we miss him a lot, but not enough to where it's like they should have kept him, sort of thing. But no, Pollard, I feel like they just have to give him help. They have to block better. They have to get him a role where he can do more, and he's not a featured guy in my opinion. So I'm not too critical of him. That's why I think a player like Dalvin Cook would be just fine.
KHY001. I saw this almost exact tweet from Tom Downey on Sunday morning. A mind-blowing stat from PFF. Tony Pollard had 46 of his 49 rushing yards come after contact, a grand total of 3 rushing yards before contact. So again, I mean, not totally Tony Pollard's fault. I do want to kick this question around the group. I don't know if this is the was it the villain in Pretty Little Liars that was named A? Can anybody corroborate that? Tony, you nodded. Okay, Howman, are you a Pretty Little Liars fan?
No.
I would appreciate someone.
That sounds familiar, though. That sounds right.
Yeah, like I think the like antagonist in the show who was like stirring up the drama was like would sign things as like A, and they were like, oh man, A is at it again. So maybe that's who this is. Stirring the pot a little bit here because Tony Catalina, the question, Rudy says yes, by the way. So the steel trap, this brain of mine. Anyway, Tony, the question: what grade would you give Deuce Vaughn's rookie season? Let's go letter grades in the spirit of A.
I mean, I don't really have a letter grade. I want to say incomplete, like needs more improvement. Like
so you failed. You literally failed the one question that we've been asked.
He did as well. I mean, there really has been this is a guy who went to class and didn't go enough times to pass to the next grade. Like he had too many absences. So it's like, it's tough to like really say, especially coming off of, 2 rushes, for 2 yards. And I think so. I mean, for me, I think he passed in the sense of, what was the reality, like realistic expectations of this guy, right? Like of what he was and where he was drafted and what was expected of him. He did fine. Like, I mean, he wasn't what the fan base has built him up to be, and that's no fault of his own. But as far as I'm concerned, it's incomplete to, okay. Like first, I mean, maybe next year he'll have a better, put on a little bit more mass. He won't get any taller, but at the same time, like maybe he'll have more production.
Howman.
I'd have to give him a C just because, relative to his expectations, I think how well he played in the preseason really like made our expectations grow beyond what the realistic expectations were. I think that happened for the Cowboys coaches too, because in those first few weeks, Mike McCarthy even said like, we have to get him, get a package to feature him. And he clearly has shown, Mike McCarthy has shown an ability to get some of those utility players a role. Like Kevontae Turpin has had significantly more touches than he did last year. Obviously, the last couple of weeks hasn't been featured a whole lot. Maybe they're, saving some of those plays for the playoffs, but he knew how to work with Kevontae Turpin, how to incorporate him into this offense. And I trust that he'll be able to figure that out with Deuce Vaughn later on too. But, those last couple of games that he played in, I mean, he was having significant struggles in pass protection. That was one of the bigger concerns with him. And then just, his speed alone was not able to make up for some of the other problems that he was facing, much of which, again, came down to the offensive line. They weren't, getting their blocks. They weren't creating holes for any running back, whether it's Deuce Vaughn or Tony Pollard to run through. So I can't be too harsh on him just because, realistically, we shouldn't have expected a whole lot more than what has happened. But it is a little bit disappointing just because of, in preseason, like we saw the potential that was there, but again, he's barely touching the ball even when he was playing. So it's like, what exactly is he supposed to do at that point?
Danny Phantom, I think you put it well in that we kind of like, even though we know better, around preseason, we let the moment and the story and everything kind of, grip us and take us. So I imagine your grade's going to be of a failing capacity.
It is. It's a simple one for me. And this is the thing that we talked about on our podcast in the off season that we were worried about too. And it's not his fault. I feel like he gets an F, but it's because he's in advanced physics or something. And he just,
right. That's a great way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah. It is physics actually that's stopping him. It's just nothing that he's just too small. And, you look at that one time he got in space, and as soon as somebody got in close to, I mean, he stopped faster than Tony Pollard. He was stopped. It was just, I don't think that he's big enough or has the other, you got to be super quick or fast if you're going to be that small and making plays in this league. And I just don't think that he's capable of doing it. Is it his fault? No, but yeah, I mean, here's the one thing that I found about this is He's the only running back that's had more than one carry that is averaging less than 2 yards per carry out of all of them. And so, I mean, he's just, I don't know what to do with him. And I think the Cowboys, they made a bad decision this past week thinking he's going to be the change of pace guy to spell Pollard, and it just didn't work.
All right. Well, sorry, Deuce. We're still big fans, but just not a good time right now. Okay, that takes us to kind of the meatiest question we have tonight. Tony, if I'm being honest, you inspired this question. I don't know if anybody recalls, but 2 years ago at this exact show, the Roundtable entering Week 18, we sat here and we said, who do we want to see the Cowboys face in the wild card round? Because we knew the Cowboys were locked into the 3 seed. They were going to Philly for that meaningless Week 18 game. And Tony Catalina, the curse is on him, not Jimmy Johnson, not anything like that. Tony said, I want the Niners. And he said it all smug like that. I mean, he made a face and he was like, I want the Niners. They suck. They stink. Bring me Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm not afraid of him. And ever since then, they've owned our favorite team. They live rent-free in our minds because Tony decided it was a good idea to pee into the wind. Tony, do you regret that from 2 years ago?
1,000,000%. I couldn't have been more wrong. Like, I've never been more wrong about anything in my life. And then I doubled down last year and said Purdy was no good. And I mean, I'm gonna stop poking the 49ers bear here.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. But that being said, we can prefer one team, and let's be very clear, we're not meaning any disrespect. Tony learned his lesson. We're all gonna have learned it from him. The Cowboys, if they win on Sunday, are the 2 seed in the NFC playoff picture. They can play at home for 2 games, maybe even 3, obviously, if they continue to win. But that being said, Danny, we will start with you. Which team do you most prefer to see play the Cowboys in the wild card round of the playoffs? Things can break a number of different ways, obviously. And you can answer this even and say, I prefer the Buccaneers. I prefer the Cowboys. Again, I don't know why anybody would do this, but I prefer to see the Cowboys fall to the 5 seed and travel to place the Bucs. So whatever the case may be, that is one possible opponent for the Cowboys. So that's my point. All options are available and on the table to the 3 of you. That being said, Danny Phantom, who is the team you want to see? And actually, while you answer that, who's the team you want to see the least? Of the wild card options, obviously, San Francisco is on at the top of that list.
Well, I want to first say that absolutely not. My least choice is the Bucs or the 5 seed. And anybody trying to rationalize that type of thinking, I don't think is thinking things through clearly. Because, yeah, I mean, if you're just talking first round opponents, that's fine. But we're thinking a little bit above that. And so of the more likely opponents, and assuming we get the 2. I think my choice is going to be Green Bay, and the reason for it, when I kind of sized these up with the main 3 candidates, and I kind of looked at like how good are they at running the ball, how good is their quarterback, and I started just kind of looking at those kind of things, and that's to me where I felt like Green Bay is the weakest group. Like the team I don't want is the Rams, and I don't want the Rams because like the Rams with Kyron Williams have been just like really good. And if you look at how since he's come back from injury, I mean, and they've been running over teams, and their only loss since he's come back is to Baltimore, and that went in overtime. And we know how good the Ravens have been. So everyone's talking about how they're worried about the Rams. That's fair. I mean, and as far as matchup wise too, even though we beat them, it was without Kyron, and I think that would be different. And you look at the running game, and then with Stafford's a wild card, and they have some receiving weapons. So they're the ones I fear the most. So you bring it back over a little more to who's the worst. And I feel like I think that Jordan Love's having a great first year as quarterback, and he's doing a good job. But I'm not going to fear this guy in the playoffs. His first year, go on the road sort of thing. And Green Bay, to me, I feel is the weaker team overall. So I want to see the Packers.
To your point, Danny, historically, first year playoff quarterbacks, that's if you have to make a bet on something, that's it. A lot of people were chatting how the Rams are effectively locked into the 6 seed. They're not literally, but the Cowboys could still be the 3 seed. If Detroit were to win and Dallas were to either win, if Detroit were to win and Dallas were to lose, but Philadelphia also lost, Dallas would take the division, but they would lose out on the 2 seed to the Lions. And as the Rams are most likely going to be the 6 seed, that's how the matchup in the wild card round could happen. Danny Howman, we'll go next with you because we have to build up Tony's answer, obviously, based on how much he screwed us 2 years ago. So that being said, of all practical permutations, who do you want to see the most and least?
Yeah, well, I mean, you were just going over all the wonky scenarios out there of like who could be here and who could be there, and I'm looking at all the different, all the different alternate realities, and I'm just thinking like, who do you have to throw a drink at to get the Panthers into the playoffs? Like that would be the ideal situation. But of the realistic options, I agree with Danny. I do want to see Green Bay. Jordan Love, I'm probably a little more scared of him than Danny is, but again, with a quarterback being, in his first playoff game, playing against a defense that's, really tough to play against, like the Cowboys. And Jordan Love has, even though he's been better lately, he does have some of those erratic qualities to his game. But more than anything, I look at that Green Bay defense and I'm like, Dak Prescott's going to eat that defense up. CeeDee Lamb's going to eat him up. Like that would just be, especially with it being at home, and we know how good this Cowboys offense can be in AT&T Stadium. And I just really like that matchup, because even if your defense gets caught in a bad day and Jordan Love is feeling hot, I feel good about Dak Prescott against that defense going up and having to go toe-to-toe with Jordan Love. So I want them the most, probably. Plus, there's the added narrative of Mike McCarthy getting to beat the Packers and move on. As far as the team I least want to see, I'm tempted to, again, agree with Danny and go with the Rams, but I think I kind of got to side with the Seahawks, just because the Seahawks are, we saw it a few weeks ago. They came into Dallas and they went toe-to-toe with the Cowboys, and they're one of those teams, like Seahawks fans know, they never play a normal game. Something crazy is always going to happen. They're always going to be in it. I think some of the things that they do offensively pose a challenge for this defense. And they've got some guys on their defense that can make life difficult for the Cowboys on offense if they're playing well. So just given the way that matchup went the first time, and knowing how good Pete Carroll has been historically in his career in the playoffs, I don't like that rematch. But again, of the potential options for the Cowboys to host, none of them really scare me, but I think that's the closest one for me.
Tony, for what it's worth, we saw some kind of comments in the chat saying the Saints are the most preferred, outcome or playoff opponent for the Cowboys in the first round. For what it's worth, if we're presuming the Cowboys to be the 2 seed, and I think we're all picking them to win on Sunday, which would make that the reality, there's only one world in which the Saints are the 7 seed. The most likely way that New Orleans gets in is as the NFC South winner. And that would require a Buccaneers loss to the Panthers. Speaking of drinks obviously being thrown in people's faces, Howman, great job. So I mean, I think that's why I don't want to speak for Danny or Howman. I think that's probably why they avoided the Saints, just because that's not really practical. It's not really possible. We're trying to deal in as best or as high of likelihood as we possibly can at this point.
Yeah, I mean, like it's been talked about on Twitter all week. You love the idea of playing that 4 seed, right? Whoever wins the NFC South is the team you want to play, but you have bigger fish to fry. You want to be the 2 seed. You want the possibility to play the home games, as many as you possibly can, with an actual chance to play in the NFC Championship game at home. So with that in mind, I'm with them. I think the obvious answer for a team you don't want to play is the Rams, but with them possibly locked in the 6th seed and the way it drops down, of the realistic teams, you want to play the Packers. Like you said, the first year quarterback in the playoffs, they're a little banged up, their defense can be had. That makes a lot of sense. So I don't really have to reiterate too much what they're saying. That's kind of where my line of thinking is with it. I'm right there with them. I'd rather play the Green Bay Packers in the first round. And the team, believe it or not, like you guys kind of alluded to a little bit, was I don't really want to play the Seahawks, right? They're gonna be confident against the Cowboys, right? They were up there hanging 30+ points, and Geno Smith looked like a rock star. DK Metcalf has Deron Bland's number. Jackson Smith and Jigba is comfortable in his home state. Like, there's a lot of elements to that Seahawks team that put our backs against the ropes. So I think that's probably the team I don't want to see. And it's not because I think they're like this juggernaut team or they're not beatable. It's just once you get a little bit of like, hey, we don't have to be afraid of these guys. Like, we can beat this guy. Like, they didn't have Kenneth Walker last time. If he's healthy, it changes the element a little bit. So, everybody you face is going to be a good team, and you're just going to have to roll with the punches a little bit. But I think I want to avoid the Seattle Seahawks if I can.
By the way, I don't think we're making enough of the fact that the 2 heroes and, kind of allowing the Cowboys to potentially clinch the NFC East are DFW dudes in Jackson Smith and Jigba and Kyler Murray. They were the, kind of most important role players in the, most significant losses that the Eagles had that, again, allowed this reality to unfold. Speaking of things unfolding, this is where I've landed. And y'all can tell me if I'm, just allowing the moment to take me and sweep me away too much, or if what I'm saying is fair. And it might be fair and terrifying at the same time. The take I've landed on is this is the best way that the Cowboys have entered the playoffs, maybe this century, but certainly in the Mike McCarthy era. Tony, I know I gave you a hard time, but I don't think any of us view the 49ers the way we do now at this time 2 years ago. Is that fair to say? We've learned a lot, right? We've burnt our hand on the stove, right? When it comes to, and I don't think that's just the Cowboys. I think that's the league as a whole. So we had no idea. Do y'all recall that the Niners, and I've brought this up on a few shows already this week, the Niners won like 7 straight games to get into the playoffs in 2021. That was crazy. And they beat the Rams, who would go on to win the Super Bowl, in a Week 18 game just to get in. And because they had the tiebreaker over Philly, it was the 3-seeded Cowboys who had to deal with them in the first round. And again, we learned a very, very difficult lesson. And last year, if not for, Daniel Jones and Brian Dable having like the game of their lives, the Vikings should have won that game, and that would have sent Dallas to Philadelphia in the divisional round. Not that we would have felt great about those odds, but I think we would have much preferred to go even face last year's Eagles over the Niners based on recent history. We are guaranteed, if the Cowboys obviously win their wild card matchup, to avoid the Niners until the title game at the very least. And if we all believe in the Rams as much as I think we all do, the Rams could possibly, I think, I'll ask Danny the question. I think the Rams have the best chance, not that it's a great chance, but the best chance of going to San Francisco and upsetting them of all NFC playoff teams. Is that fair to say?
It is. It's fair. I want to say the Eagles because I want to believe that they're still that good Eagles team that could show up and just get into a dogfight. And if they don't beat them, they wear them down. But I think you're right, RJ. I mean, the divisional teams, they know each other. They play each other tough. So I think you're right there. I wanted to make one quick point about the Rams. I think we might have misspoke earlier. The Rams can get in the 7th seed.
It's possible, but it's a lower likelihood than anything else. Right?
It's actually not that unlikely of it because all it would take would be the Packers winning and the Rams losing. And we don't really know what's going to happen in that San Francisco Rams game. I mean, the Niners don't have anything to play for, but they also have 2 weeks off. So, and the Niners are clearly the better team. So, I mean, I can see San Francisco still winning, and having this better record and going out strong, beating the Rams, and then the Packers winning, beating the Bears. And seems like that's actually not too far-fetched. So the Rams could fall into that 7th seed. So I just want to, make that.
Presuming they don't, while we all have our own set of scars relative to the Packers, granted not necessarily associated with Jordan Love, I think we're all willing to fight that fight and take on that challenge. And if we do, it's very probable that the Rams, who we're kind of afraid of, go to Detroit and beat them and then get to go to San Francisco. And then what, the Cowboys have to host the Eagles? Like, are we nervous about that? Like, I know we're nervous about like it going badly and having to eat that for a year, but like, are we actually nervous about that? And how sweet would it be to beat the Eagles of all teams to get past the divisional round for the first time in forever? I mean, like, that would be incredible at AT&T Stadium. And even if the Rams don't pull off the upset, like, you got to the NFC Championship game and anything can truly happen at that point in time. But again, Howman, I might be like getting swept up here, but it does feel like this is the rub of the green went the Cowboys' way this year in ways that it hasn't relative to the overall kind of weird bounces of the ball that tend to happen with regards to playoff seeding.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's just a coincidence that all these things started falling their way right after they brought Jimmy Johnson into the Ring of Honor. There's absolutely no correlation there. But I mean, yeah, this is very advantageous for them. Of course, not, getting ahead of ourselves. They still have to beat the Commanders. It's on the road, so you never know. But yeah, I mean, it's the Commanders. So they're in a really good spot here. They suddenly control their destiny, and being that number 2 seed really helps you out as far as your path through to the playoffs. I get where you're coming from with like the Rams being the team that can, go up against the 49ers. I look at that like history between, Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan doesn't really go Sean McVay's way. This isn't even his best team, even though they are impressive. And for the record, I don't like any of these NFC teams in a matchup against the 49ers. I'm not putting money on any of them in that game, but if I had really, really absolutely had to pick one, I would go with the Lions just because they're kind of built similarly, built out of the trenches on both sides. And Dan Campbell's kind of that coach that like he tries to win on the margin so much to where, maybe you get a couple lucky bounces here and there. And also just for food for thought on that, like 2021, his first year, his very first game with the Lions, they played the 49ers and they lost, but they only lost by 8 points. It came down to the wire. And that was the 2021 season where they didn't win a game until the first week of December. Obviously, the Lions are much better. Granted, the 49ers are too, but Dan Campbell's already shown that he can get his team ready to like go blow for blow with the 49ers. And so again, I'm not putting money on the Lions if they have to face the 49ers, but I wouldn't mind if that's a matchup that we get to see, to where potentially then you get a rematch with Cowboys Lions, and of course all the drama that would lead to that, and maybe they get Brad Allen to ref that game. Who knows what's going to happen there? But that's really what I would like to see.
The only kind of detail to that is because the Lions can't fall below the 3 seed. If we presume Dallas to be the 2, then if Detroit's going to San Francisco, that means something terrible happened and that Dallas is no longer a part of the picture, at least prior to the NFC Championship game. So let's hope that Howman's not manifesting something horrible here. Just, so we're very clear for the record. Tony, you are somebody that likes to believe in the romance of sports and likes to believe in the romance associated with the Cowboys. Again, I don't like mean to just whatever, but like it does feel like things broke their way finally for the first time in this like century.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I love being analytical. I love looking at the numbers, but sometimes like I look at the gut and I look at the feeling of the things, and you're right. Like there's no rhyme or reason to feel that way, but for the ball to bounce the way it has, the way this team has been like terrorized over the last quarter century, like it just feels good to see some things fall into place. Like Dak Prescott's a very easy guy to root for. This Cowboys team has a lot of likable guys. Micah Parsons, there's a lot of dudes and a lot of elements and storylines that, like, you're going to look at me in the comments and be like, Tony, be quiet. Like, it's nonsense. But you feel good about, if you believe in destiny, you believe in things that can happen, on a whim. Because football is, I don't know if you guys agree or disagree, but it's not only do you have to be good, you have to be immensely lucky to win the Super Bowl too. Like things have to go right. Like why can't the luck and the ball bounce our way just one time, like in the last 30 years, please?
Last question before we kind of
wrap things up. I get the answer?
I thought you did. You actually went first in my mind.
I didn't get to talk about the Magic. I just want to clarify the Rams.
Well, you poo-pooed the Magic. You were like, well, actually, the Rams could be the 7th seed and they could ruin all of our dreams and everything. So, like, I didn't know that you believed in Magic at this point, Danny.
Well, actually, I want to elaborate on that poo-poo because here's the thing with, you guys. This. I kind of feel a little bit worried because for the last couple of weeks. Hey, you know what? I am who I am. Okay. For the last 2 weeks, we've been worried about, gosh, I just wish we could avoid the 49ers. If somehow we can just get that easy route, and it's all fallen into place now. It feels like it's just too good to be true. I'm a little worried because you get this red hot Rams team coming in. And now keep in mind, RJ, you were talking about the red hot 49ers. They come in there. They're like a couple years removed from being in the Super Bowl. Just like the Rams, they were bad the following year, and everyone's like, and then they're coming in, they're playing well. Now I start to think, like, wouldn't it just be terrible if the Cowboys finally get, the division winners again, and they turned around just like they did in San Francisco, and they were upset and they were beat by a team. And it would just take all the great things that we were thinking, all the magic would just go away. And honestly, the way the Cowboys season has been, there's just a lot of stuff happening. It's just weird. The stuff's happening, and even this Lions game that the Cowboys won to get in this position was just so weird. And I don't know. I feel like sometimes the Cowboys they get in their own way and they somehow just, do some weird thing. Like they'll just run down the field and fall down and then try to spike it. Just weird stuff happens to this team. And I worry that as great as it is to be in the spot, it would be terrible to go in there and lose in a wild card round to the 7th seed Rams.
Well, that's why I think the most optimum scenario is Packers at 7th seed, Rams at 6th seed. Because if you do believe in the Rams as an upset candidate, that would send them to San Francisco. And if we acknowledge that the teams we're most fearful of are the 49ers and the Rams, if they're playing one another, the Cowboys would only have to play one of them as opposed to both of them potentially. So,
well, they could play them on wild card weekend is what I'm saying.
No, but that's what I'm saying. The most optimum scenario is presuming Dallas is 2, Green Bay is 7, and LA is 6. And then that's it. That's the ballgame. That's what I'm saying. And then Dallas wins, LA wins, Dallas hosts Philadelphia or Tampa, and LA goes to San Francisco. Boom. That's Yahtzee. Anyway, last question. But it's kind of a good one, and I hope it is. I decided to ask it. Pro Bowl rosters, we believe, are announced on Wednesday evening. So I don't know, about 22-ish hours from this exact moment in time. The question is, what non-obvious Cowboys player will make the Pro Bowl? To be clear, you are trying to predict someone who will actually make the Pro Bowl. To be clear, we don't need to hear Dak Prescott. We don't need to hear CeeDee Lamb. We're looking for a little bit more off the wall. Not that, again, we want you to make up one that you don't believe in, but I hope that the premise is obvious. Does everybody understand the rules?
Yeah, well, you need to take one more player off the board before we start this.
Zach Martin.
Actually, two more. You need to take
Michael
Micah
Parsons.
and you need to take one more until you say his name. I'm not going to start.
Tyron Smith.
No, keep going.
If Brandon Aubrey has reached like obvious status, then I'm fine with that. He has. Okay, I'm fine with that. Look, Tony, Howman, Danny's the one wrecking y'all's answers.
Yeah, we just took all the players off the board.
So, just heads up. But Danny, you're going to have to go last now because no repeat answers are allowed here this evening. Update on the score. Remember, double points. Tony 150, Howman 154. Danny in the lead. Maybe that's why he's kind of pounding his chest a little bit here. Howman, you can go first. What non-obvious Cowboys player make the Pro Bowl? I'm
going to go with long snapper Trent Sieg. And really, like this is one of those positions where like
that's cheating.
How's that cheating?
Oh, that's it's over. He won.
Yeah. I mean, but like when people go and vote on the Pro Bowl, like you go through the positions and almost all of them, like who you're voting for before you get there. And then when you get to long snapper, like you look at the list and you're just like, who's on the good team, and the Cowboys are a really good team, and everybody knows about Brandon Aubrey and his story, and obviously.
Did you guys know he went to Notre Dame? Was an MLS draft pick? Y'all ever heard that before? Okay.
He played soccer. Like, what's not to love? And guess who helps him be that great is the long snapper. So yeah, sure. Voters are gonna be like, he must be doing something right.
Okay, so your answer, to be clear, is Trent Sieg.
Yes,
it's the right answer, but the wrong reasoning.
Wow. Goodness. I love the contentiousness that's brewing here. Tony, good luck coming up with an answer that Danny Phantom approves of.
Sure. Let me give it my best shot here. I'm going to say Osa Odigizua. I think Osa in the middle, he's the quiet, unsung guy. Like, I feel like the national attention's growing a little bit. Like once you get like a Baldy breakdown and people are starting to talk about you in that light, things start to change. And what's he got? I'm looking it up right now, so I'm cheating. I apologize. But you got 31 tackles, you got 3 sacks. He has actually a PFF grade of 82.3. So he's playing really well, and it's a non-glamorous position. I don't think he's made as much noise in the run game as like DeMarcus Lawrence has in the last couple of weeks, because he's just like, people seem to forget that DeMarcus Lawrence is. And if I'm taking Danny's answer, my bad. But, for him to be able to play the way he does in an unsung position, a guy who kind of dedicated, really getting the work. You hear a lot of stories about how he played or kind of trained this offseason, took over, kind of Aaron Donald type of situation. But I think it's also Odigizua. He's probably somebody that's like, I think people are going to be like, yeah, duh. And there's going to be some people that go, oh, yeah. So I think it's the perfect answer when you get a mix of those two.
He thinks it's the perfect answer, Danny. So your answer sucks, Howman, according to Tony.
No, I mean, it is the perfect answer, but for the wrong reason.
Oh, Danny, what is your answer, and why was Trent Sieg the right answer for the wrong reason?
First off, I like Tony's answer. I think it was a great answer. I think his reasons are great. I actually think it's the wrong answer. I don't think Osa gets in, but I definitely think he's certainly deserving. He's on the fringe. Good choice there. But so here's the thing. There's a few players that I kind of are on the list. I want to just mention, like, I think Deron Bland's probably an obvious one because of the season he's having. I'm not picking him. I think that he might be probably the worst player on the Pro Bowl team.
Is he an All-Pro? Like to take the conversation once, I think he has to make the All-Pro team.
I
First team All-Pro.
I do, but it's going to be very weird because, I mean, I think it's just more on just what he's accomplished versus actually, his skill level personally. So I think he makes it too. I'm going to go with Brian Anger, and I think that Anger's going to join. I think it's going to be a hat trick of those three. And I think in the long snapper follows the kicker, if I'm not mistaken. I do remember. I feel like the long snapper went when Dan Bailey went. So I think
LP,
that's how that
go.
I think LP. So. But I think Brian Anger's having a Pro Bowl season. We don't talk about him a whole lot because there's not a lot to talk about. But as far as if you look at the way he, his average, punts, and I think that he's having a Pro Bowl season. So I think he might be one of those surprise ones that sneak in the whole special team guy. All three of them will end up making the Pro Bowl.
So the best answer that I've seen so far actually comes from the chat. Colby said Gilmore, ? Steve A said maybe Gilmore. I think that, Tony, I liked your reasoning of having the Baldy breakdown. Like, the Pro Bowl is not the all-pro team. Like, the Pro Bowl, you got to have some level of popularity. You got to have gone viral a couple of times on the internet. You generally got to be a household name. I could totally see Stephon Gilmore, household name, plays for a marquee franchise, has had some big-time moments. I mean, people, to everyone's point, just kind of look at the ballot and say, oh, Stephon Gilmore, he's good, whatever. So Stephon Gilmore was the best answer. Brian Anger's been a Pro Bowler before, Danny, so not exactly a unique answer, not exactly non-obvious, I guess, in that sense. Osa Digizua is a strong answer, Tony.
I have a question. There's a player we haven't mentioned that I don't know if he qualifies as obvious. That might be the right answer if he hasn't been brought up. I think that DeMarcus Lawrence is going to make the Pro Bowl. Does anybody think that that's not going to happen?
I thought that's who you were going to pick. So, like, when I brought him up, that was like my bad. But yeah, no, I think he deserves a nod. I don't think he gets nearly the. I think everyone agrees that he doesn't get as much respect as he probably should.
Yeah, I don't think it happens, but just because there's so many other edge players out there that have been having great seasons that he's going to get left out. But it's going to be like there'll be so many edge players that do get left out that could very easily have gotten a Pro Bowl and just don't.
I'm going to cheat for my answer in a couple of ways because you got to play the game. Like, I'm changing the answer. Actually, it's not necessarily who will be voted to the Pro Bowl as much as who is going to go to the Pro Bowl on behalf of the Cowboys, because it's a process where, there's a lot of alternates, a lot of players, choose not to go. A lot of players are hurt. And again, going off of like being a household name, having some star power behind your name, et cetera, et cetera. I'm going to go really bold here, and I think Brandon Cooks plays in the Pro Bowl. I don't think he gets voted originally, but I could totally see like Jamar Chase not going, Justin Jefferson not going, right? Like, we're getting really down the list and wide receivers.
Keep
and
going.
So all of a sudden,
keep going.
Yeah. Look, the general point is understood. And then it's like, oh, Brandon Cooks, really awesome player, really good, big name on a good team. I could totally see Brandon Cooks picking up a Pro Bowl now. Tony, you were nodding. I feel like you agree with the logic.
He's never made the Pro Bowl and he's had great seasons, never made it. And then this season
he's never played for the Cowboys. That changes the dynamic significantly.
It's crazy. I mean, that's super non-obvious, RJ. I'll give you that.
Would it feel like a Tyler Huntley situation?
I mean, exactly. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, weirder things have happened to that point. Right. You got to play the game.
A backup quarterback goes to the Pro Bowl. That's crazy. A backup quarterback in the Pro Bowl is so funny to me, but I digress.
That's why Lamar Jackson played so well this year. That dude looking over his shoulder was a Pro Bowler last year.
Hey, Cowboys have sent 2 backup running backs to the Pro Bowl. So, I mean,
a lot of people, and Ed Weaver just said, I can see Ferguson sneaking in too. Do we feel like it'd be sneaking? I feel like it'd be like Kool-Aid Man breaking through the wall. Like, not exactly sneaking,
I think it'd be sneaking. I mean, I'm trying to think of who the NFC.
How many NFC tight ends are better?
Well, Laporta, right? Howman would say
George
Laporta.
Kittle.
Kittle. Yeah. Who else?
People are going to vote for
Dallas got it.
Goddard.
Dallas Goddard will get some votes. I mean, people want
Kyle Pitts.
That would be hilarious.
he shouldn't get
Holland,
but he'll get them.
Yeah, I mean, Ferguson's got a strong chance. I think.
You got RJ. Do you remember when you gave me a little BS when I said he was the worst player or the worst best player we had? You remember that before the season started?
With the Ferguson take was always this, and I don't mean to paint you as this person, Tony. Mm-hmm. I think that people often confuse their wants for their beliefs. And so there was a lot of like, I don't know, guys. I think Jake Ferguson is going to really be something in 2023. That wound up happening, to be very clear. But it was born for a lot of people out of want and ambition more than it was actual reasoning. The sample size of production from him as a rookie was microscopic. Like there wasn't NFL data to suggest or imply. The sample size wasn't even legitimate enough to come to a reasonable conclusion. It was all pure want and gumption. That is the take.
For people who don't know, I got this answer because I literally said he was the worst best player. All I said was he was like a good player, but he was the worst of the good players. And I was like, oh, no way. He's not. No way. So, all right.
Look, we've had worse takes around here. Like Leighton Vander Esch, not going to be on the 53-man roster. You know what I mean? Like,
I don't know who said that, but it was ridiculous.
Mike McCarthy's not a good play caller, right? Like, those things have been said by other people on this round.
Yeah.
Well, Well,
yeah,
let
like
me
the
just get
49ers
out
think,
ahead of next year and say, like, I don't know. I feel like Deuce Vaughn next year could hit 1,000.
See, like, okay, the Deuce Vaughn thing is a great example of my like take. That's like he was an example of like a lot of people like, I don't know. I really think that this Deuce Vaughn guy has something because they watched 5 minutes of YouTube highlights. Like that's what Jake Ferguson was. Again, I don't mean to reduce him to that. Like he's been an amazing player and he should be a Pro Bowler, but that happens all too often, is my point. So
fair enough.
I think Ferguson. I don't know if I agree with this. I think Ferguson had a reasonable chance to be a valuable player, similar to what he's doing. Simply because I mean, we all knew Dalton Schultz wasn't this star athlete, and he was just going to fit into this system. That's the way they use tight ends, and I mean, he's doing it seamlessly to me. So I don't know. I'm not too surprised with what's happening with Fergie.
Tony, you can wrap up the Ferguson point because you took us down this stupid rabbit hole.
Listen. No, I'm just kidding. No, yeah, I actually agree with Danny, and that was kind of my point when I made the original point was like, I don't think Dalton Schultz's numbers were like gaudy. Like, so to think that Jake Ferguson could step in and duplicate what he did really didn't seem that far-fetched to me. So I was already of the mind that this guy was as talented, if not more talented than Dalton Schultz, could do all similar things, and he was more athletic with a little bit more wiggle and yards after the catch. So, like, for me, it wasn't as far as a leap as some people have thought to think that he may be playing at this level. And obviously, the fruits of labor are working out, and I think he's turning into be one of the better guys in the league.
All right, whatever. Y'all were all wrong and dumb and stupid. And anyway, all right. So here's our tally at the moment. Danny Phantom, 206 points. Tony Catalina, 202. Howman, 200. Tony, Howman, you were both absent last week. Danny Phantom was here. It was a great time. We did a very special thing at the end of it. Did either of you, Tony or Howman, watch or listen to the roundtable last week?
Unfortunately, I was not able to.
Wow. Danny, are your feelings hurt? Because mine are.
I'm trying. Can you refresh me what happened? I'm trying to.
So what we did was a random draw at the very end that ultimately impacted the way things went. So that's what we're going to do tonight. I have 3 sheets of paper that I have written down on, numbered 1, 2, and 3. And on the back side of each piece of paper is a number. And you're going to each pick one of these pieces of paper, and you're going to get the number that's on the back. We're going to add those points to your total. This is not, these points aren't double. We're just going to add these points as they stand numerically. So they're numbered 1, 2, and 3. Danny Phantom, you have the most points at the moment, so you get first choice. Do you want number 1, 2, or 3? Here are your options. Here's 1.
Yeah, you don't have to. I know what numbers are.
All right. Oh, by the way, very quickly, I missed a super chat from Brian. He said Marquise Bell is my sneaky Pro Bowl nominee.
What would Brian pick? I wonder if he had to pick. I wonder what he would pick.
What are you going to pick, Danny? You're up. 1, 2, or 3.
I think, let's see. Last week I messed up. I tried to get inside RJ's head, and so he's definitely going to throw me a curveball again. I wish he would stop making me pick. I am going to, since the Stalin's not working, I would pick 3.
He said 3 is my favorite number. That's what Brian
There you go.
said.
There you go.
Okay.
3.
Okay.
So you're going to go Pro Bowler Brandon Cooks.
You're going to go number 3 right there. That's yours, Danny Phantom. Tony, you have the second most points, so you get to pick between 1 and 2.
Give me 2 for Jordan Lewis.
2 for Jordan Lewis, who a lot of people wanted to be, Deuce Vaughn, obviously.
Danny's boy.
So, Howman, that leaves you with number 1. No choice, but are you feeling good about it?
I feel great about it. That's J-Ron Curse's number, and he's a baller, so I'll ride with that.
All right, number 3 here, Danny Phantom. I got this sheet of paper from my cousin, says Dad's notes, so I'm putting it to very good use, obviously. Number 3, Danny Phantom, 54 points. We're adding that to your total. So solid effort. So, Danny, that takes you all the way up to 260. You were sitting at 206. That's the way that math works. So that's where we are. Tony Catalina, you had number 2. All right. On the back there, 32 points. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of drama here. So Tony Catalina up to 34. So, Howman, you're sitting at 200. You need 61 points to win. You have number 1. How many points do you think are on here, Howman?
I mean, it's got to be 61, right?
Danny, how many do you think are on here?
These ranges are very weird. I don't know. I feel
Have you
like
ever seen a game show? There's supposed to be a variable of randomization.
Oh my goodness, man!
Tony, how many points do you think are on this piece of paper?
59.
This is sheet number 1. There are 8 points.
Anticlimactic.
So how many?
Where do you come up with these numbers?
You finish with 208. Not enough to get it done. Obviously, that means tonight's roundtable winner is Danny. Brian with the assist, who told you to take number 3. That was the difference in it. Congratulations, Danny. How are you feeling as a result of tonight's roundtable win?
I feel good because I feel like this was weird, ineligible pick the number game did not have any impact over the outcome. So I think everything stayed the same as the luck of the draw had it. So I'm thankful for that Brian got in just quickly enough that, I was trying to stall for him to give me that number. So for sure, I feel great. It's almost like how I felt when the Eagles lost.
Danny, by the way, David notes that you won it without the numbers. So there was nothing funny about this. Like, it was an authentic win. You earned it. Congratulations to you. Tony, Lonely Catman said this is like in Harry Potter Quidditch. Do you know what that is, Tony?
Kinda.
How do you kind of know? I would love to hear the explanation as far as how you kind of know what this is.
Isn't it like, I know it's a game within the movie, but I couldn't get you to explain.
It's not a movie. It's a book series. It's a whole universe. It's more than a movie, to be very clear.
Enough.
It's not just a game. It's the game. There's a Quidditch World Cup. Tony, come on.
I've seen people try to play Quidditch like in real life. Like, so that's an interesting dynamic there.
Howman, do you have any passionate thoughts on Quidditch or Danny's win or the fact that you only got 8 points from your special sheet of paper?
Well, I was actually, for like a full week, I was on the Quidditch team in college. So there's something. I do want to say that they never let me play.
Okay.
That's why it was only for a week. I did want to point out, though, Danny was saying the numbers game thing was like ineligible. I'm not sure it reported, though.
Wow.
Yeah, he tried to.
I want to quit.
RJ took 3 numbers, went up to the ref.
Yeah,
he tried to
doing his chest.
Wow, yeah, that's great. Did I have 68 on here? That would have been funny. I should have done that. I should have gone Decker, Sewell, and Dan Skipper. That would have been the move there. But
I feel like they should be a little closer, RJ. It's
why it's a risk. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there has to be, there's a price to pay. You got to pick the right sheet, Danny. I mean, I wish we could all get gold medals.
58 minutes of the show.
I mean,
does anybody remember when Dan Skipper was here when he was in Dallas? Do you remember that?
I interviewed him. I remember that very well.
Yeah,
that's in the Blog on the Boys. I think history books. So
good for him, because he kind of disappeared and went to Detroit.
He's the perfect Dan Campbell player. Like Dan Campbell is the perfect coach for Dan Skipper. Wow. Let's see. David says quality end of show Detroit Slams. All right. Tony, you did not get last, but you're gonna have to finish this show out for us. And what we would like you to do, we would like everybody to hit the like button, though, is what's on my notes. Tony, we would like you to tell us who your favorite Quidditch team is and why.
I couldn't even possibly begin to even tell you. And I don't even know how to spell Quidditch.
If only it had been in the chat on the screen that we're all looking at right now. That would have been a helpful thing.
Give me a name in the chat. Because I have no idea.
No, you have to pick a favorite team, not a favorite player. Who's your favorite team and why? You have to tell us why that is your favorite team.
Man.
You can do this.
I genuinely don't know. I
can do this, Tony. You can.
How could I? Ravenclaw.
That's your favorite team.
That's his. Yeah, there you go.
And why? Team. Give us a why.
He's not going to hit me with the Man U, so I know that's real.
Give us a why.
Tell us why is because they're like the Cowboys of the 90s. They just keep winning.